When did you first start playing music? How old were you?
Like the way that I kind of am now, like I, had piano lessons from mum and that kind of thing. But let's say like the real, always sang it like stuff like school musical like as a kid.
What, like primary school?
Primary school, yeah, like lead roles and like Joseph in his Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yep.
And the first time I got the lead role for the school, I was in grade 3 in Mortlake at St Coleman's. It was for the Jazz Nativity. And to get that, there was auditions. Mum and my cousin were the like two teachers running the school thing. But I mean, like it wasn't like there was a great deal of like singers in a little country school. And I did for my audition. It was really annoying doing it because your mother's, it was kind of like I never really liked that. But I did somebody's crying, and like that was that Chris Isaac song. Yeah.
I love that song. I love Chris Isaac.
Yeah, it was big at that time.
Yeah. I still listen to that record.
That's great.
Regularly. It's great. Proper romance record. Great.
Yeah, and I did. That's
How old were you
what
when
I
you
sang.
did
I would have just turned 9. Yeah. Yeah, I would have just turned 9 because I would give you about 3-month slow lead in to the end of year school play,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you play it on guitar as well?
No, I just sang it. And it was hard for me to start it because I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I was kind of more so embarrassed about singing it in front of my mother and her being a teacher. It was that kind of thing.
Did that song mean anything to you at 9?
It was the one that I sung, and it was like it'll come to me soon. But it was very like fucking. I don't know. It definitely meant something to me. Because the first song that ever meant something to me really was the Crowded House, Hole in the River.
Oh yeah.
Because it was the first time I really understood that someone had committed suicide. That was what the song was about. And that was the first time I understood the meaning of a song. So, and there'd been, I don't know, I think if you grow up on a farm, and you grow up in the country, you get to see life and death happen with animals, and so that's a good way to grow up, And Grandpa had died. He died at just the hospital because Grandpa had a heart attack, and he'd had a stroke, but many years before that. So he'd been bedridden for a few years, and this is before they could even now. If someone has a stroke, they get them back out walking,
Yeah.
And he had to go down to the Warrnambool Base Hospital, and Grandma went down to stay in the the partners' residence that have them for them.
Yeah.
Whilst he was there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Partner room. Yeah.
Yeah, and so she's asleep one night in there, and I can't tell you exactly how it happens, but I'm pretty sure her heater tips over and burns her. Started a fire, and she died in the fire.
Jesus.
Yeah, so so things like that, and then I think it might have been, I'm probably wrong on the dates, but I know that I have in my head that it was only a few weeks later, but it might have been a couple of months later. Grandpa just died, and stuff. And I think once he that would have broken his heart. Would have been horrible.
Well, that seems to happen a lot with old people. If they're together, one of them goes, and then because they're mated for life, basically, in the same way. It's sort of interesting.
And I didn't necessarily have it wasn't like I'd had a grandpa that I'd had all these great discussions with or whatever. Yeah. He was bedridden, but I had been around to see Dad take him out in the ute, like, and I'd be with Dad, and Grandpa would come along, and he'd sit in the passenger side of the ute all day whilst Dad did fencing or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was well aware of like their relationship and stuff. So I knew how much I knew as a kid how much that meant, and that was probably my first real memories of like that, seeing Dad cry and stuff, because that just happened in a hit, and his sister Lucy, she died of bowel cancer. Like, it was in the space of I think 18 months, like 3 of them gone, so it was quite a whack and stuff.
He's pretty sentimental, Peter, as well.
Oh, he is. He is. He's like, it's a he. And now more so too than ever, he kind of lets it come on now. Doesn't really fight it. I mean, that's the way I see it and stuff. So, which is it's a nice thing to kind of see. Like, go in and see Grandpa's body, kiss this dead body, in at the morgue. Yeah, all like, I thought it was great. Like, I just like, kissed his forehead. I was amazed how cold it was, and stuff. These things, though, they were experiences that I felt like, if I look back as an adult now and say, we're all dealt with really well. Like, for me as a kid, I don't feel like that was anything other than like an experience that a human should have.
Yeah, not traumatised.
Nah, not at all. Yeah. No. Like, I think more so like that kind of stuff would have been traumatising for Joseph, who was the eldest.
Yeah.
And he was down at uni in Warrnambool.
Yeah.
And he heard it on the radio. So he went down, and he was the one that found out it was Grandma.
Yeah.
And like that connotation that fire brings on is not a good one.
No.
But they're like those things where it's like, well, she was asleep, hopefully that person never woke to it, Yeah. So that was, to put that song in perspective, I suppose. Like, those experiences definitely made you understand certain things, Having older siblings, it's like, you feel like you've done most things before you do them.
Yeah.
So that was the go. It was interesting.
Were they in